done that earlier.
I hate you.
Friends and neighbors, welcome one and all to this new podcast project that we are starting. We are excited to bring you No More Heroes. That's a little play on words for a lot of you who may know this. In the original House of M comic book, the story ends with Wanda saying no more mutants, which wipes out the mutant population of the Marvel Universe. A lot of people thought that WandaVision would end with Wanda saying no, more mutants, and kick off the arrival of mutants in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Spoiler alert, that did not happen. And a lot of people got worked up about, how fun the speculation was and how it didn't pay off. And this podcast, to be honest with you, is going to involve a lot of speculation because it's fun. And I'm happy to be here. My name is John Yurcaba, and my co-host, I'll let him introduce himself because you're going to hear a lot from him too.
Indeed. Sometimes they call me Justin. At least my mom calls me that. I am the host of the podcast Super Tangent. I am not new to podcasting or podcast editing, but I have also been a geek and a nerd my entire life. I love Marvel and DC, but Spider-Man has my heart, and so I'm obviously a kind of a Marvel guy. Everything that we're going to be talking about on this podcast, I hope that you guys resonate with it. I mean, we are both around the same age. We're both people of color. There's a lot of similarities between he and I, especially as nerds and geeks, and the way that we articulate the things that we love. And I really think you're going to appreciate our approach to, the comic booky television shows and things of that nature that we're going to be talking about, especially with the upcoming Falcon and Winter Soldier show that's coming at the end of the week, which I've been supremely excited about in the past couple of days. I'm not gonna lie, John, I have not been totally excited about it until just recently. In fact, on the more recent episodes of my podcast, Super Tangent, I've been talking to the audience about how I'm not excited about Phase 4. It looked weak. It didn't look anything to be excited about. And mainly because, I kind of thought of as Phase 4 as being started off by Black Widow, which is, in my opinion, a film that's 10 years way too late. And every time it gets delayed, I just lose interest in it. And I'm trying to be optimistic, man, but I'm just like, I just don't want that. But then WandaVision came in and introduced us to Phase 4 instead of Black Widow. And now I'm just ready. I'm just set. I'm excited for that. I'm excited for Captain Marvel 2 and Spider-Man Homecoming 3, No Way Home, and Doctor Strange 2, and even the Eternals on the horizon, Thor 4. Phase 4 looks extraordinary. Shang-Chi, Legend of the Ten Rings. I mean, everything about Phase 4 looks absolutely phenomenal. And it all starts with WandaVision and how phenomenal that was. And that even kind of leads into how I feel about the Falcon and Winter Soldier. But real quick, before we get into Falcon, what were your thoughts now that the show is over? And assuming it is a miniseries and not a season 1, season 2, season 3 kind of ordeal, kind of like The Defenders on Netflix, which we were talking about not too long ago. How do you feel about WandaVision as a whole? What do you think the major themes were that you took away from it? And do you think it's going to affect or influence how you feel about Falcon and Winter Soldier?
Oh, man, these are good questions. And first of all, I got to give you props for talking some big facts in the lead up to those questions, because all of that was very accurate. And I agree with it wholeheartedly. Yeah. Man, I wasn't worried about Phase 4, but I was definitely super curious. I did not, obviously, Endgame was huge. Endgame was a fantastic payoff, not just to Infinity War, but to everything about the Marvel Cinematic Universe up to that point. And so in a lot of ways, it felt like a complete story. It felt like if for whatever reason Marvel was like, now we're out, there are very few things that I would have been like, wait, what about this? And it's funny that one of the only remaining things that felt like there was left to continue with. Like one of the only cliffhangers, so to speak, from that film was the fact that Steve gave Sam his shield. And yeah, it's just it's really interesting. I'm excited to see where that goes in Falcon and Winter Soldier. As far as WandaVision, I was very satisfied, and it was really interesting to see Phase 4 kind of shuffle around leading up to ultimately, like, you know, WandaVision coming out first and being the first thing from Phase 4 to hit. There is definitely a pattern I feel like we're going to be seeing with all of the Phase 4 projects, including Black Widow, which is very much about kind of subversively, or at least very like not in a in your face, like changing of the guard sort of way. It's going to introduce us to this next wave of characters and heroes, and really build up that this is a shift for the entire universe, as well as the roster of the Avengers and the people who we've been watching, you know, defend the planet for the past 10 plus years. I thought WandaVision was a spectacular examination of just everything that Wanda and Vision too have been through. I was thoroughly impressed with WandaVision. I know the Phase 4 did a lot of shuffling around, obviously because COVID-19 was happening. We were in a pandemic. They had to shut down some productions. Some things moved forward in some ways, some things didn't move forward. And I don't know if this just kind of came together the way it did and they ran with it, or if this was planned, but I think WandaVision was a beautiful way to kick off Phase 4. I think that, you know, Phase 4 technically ended with Spider-Man Far From Home, and that was, it kind of addressed, not as a whole, the blip, so to speak. They call it the blip in the movie, but it did address Peter's own personal connection to Tony and what it meant that he was gone and what it meant for him as Spider-Man. And then you get that little bit of a comedic moment at the beginning where, you know, you see the footage of all the different people coming back from the snap with, you know, the just dropping straight into the basketball court and everything. But I think not only with WandaVision did you get to see Wanda's own grief in dealing with everything that happened in Infinity War and Endgame concerning her connection to Vision and their story and their love. We also got to see her whole story, and it filled in so many things, not just for her as a singular character, but for the Marvel universe as a whole. You know, we learned that she probably had powers before she even came into contact with the Mind Stone, which was really interesting because obviously we kind of get the sense of where she fits in the lore and the lineage of witches in the Marvel universe. But that also has some really interesting implications for her brother, Quicksilver. Even though he's not around anymore, he, what was special about him that allowed him to interact with the Mind Stone and still come away, you know, having powers, not having died? Because they kind of allude to the fact that, and I think they also say it straight up in Age of Ultron, that they are the only two who survived any of the tests that they did with the Mind Stone and having people interact with it. So maybe still hinting at, you know, some potential secrets to be unveiled about the Maximoffs. Obviously none of them were addressed in the show itself. And I think that, you know, while the speculation was fun about them and mutants and, you know, fake Pietro, I think it's good that the focus remained on Wanda's story and Vision and her kids who we were introduced to. And really it made it so personal for me, even for all of the cool things that happened in that show. One of the thing that was most powerful for me was after after Wanda had beaten Agatha Harkness, she had become the Scarlet Witch. Everybody was safe. Her kids run over to her. She hugs and kisses them. Vision comes in. They have this nice family moment where they're kind of like, everything's going to be all right, but not for us. And Wanda realizes that this is the end, and she has to dismantle the Hex. She has to let everything get back to normal. And as that wall starts closing in, it's just Wanda and Vision and Tommy and Billy walking home. Like that stuck with me, because it's just this moment of like, you know what's coming, and it's for what they know, the last walk that they will take home as a family. And you know, Wanda's in her costume, Vision's looking like Vision. Like, it's just this, it's so bittersweet. And then like they go inside and they tuck the kids in for bed, and that wall is just getting closer and closer. Like that stuck with me, man. And I think that was the perfect way to end that show. But you know, I also think that Phase 4 is going to be really, it's weird because it's, you know, they introduced Tommy and Billy without letting it be the Tommy and Billy show. And Tommy and Billy go on to become, for anyone that reads the comics, we know that they become the characters Wiccan and Speed, who are two of the members of the Young Avengers. We also know that Kate Bishop, the new Hawkeye, is going to be introduced in the Hawkeye TV series. And even in Black Widow, we know that that's going to introduce Yelena Belova, who has also gone by the codename Black Widow in the comics. So I think as much as these are going to be stories about revisiting some characters and kind of assessing the post-Endgame landscape, it's also going to be about how it's going to be a lot about legacy and how the elder roster of Avengers plays into that, and what the direction for that is going to be going forward. And I'm really interested to see how that plays out.
Yeah. I will say that I've been pretty impressed so far with, you know, everything that they've included so far, considering the past that Wanda and Vision share, as well as the potential future that they could have shared, especially with Speed and Wiccan. That was just a phenomenal little nod to the potential future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe that I honestly wasn't expecting. You know, when Young Avengers came out, it was one of my favorite comic books at the time. It was really, I think, a monumentous achievement for Marvel, just in terms of like representation for, you know, teenagers of color. You know, half the team is queer, you know?
Yeah.
And I just thought that was absolutely phenomenal. You know, even in the comics, they joke about that. They joke about how, like, you know, I think Kate Bishop said something along the lines of, am I the only one who's not bisexual on this team? Or like something like
Right.
that. And,
Yeah.
you know, like, to be so self-aware and to enjoy that, I think, is a really beautiful thing. And so I think Wiccan and Speed have a wonderful future. And I think eventually, whether it's in the form of a Disney Plus TV show that is going to be announced at the next Disney Investor Day, or even maybe a Phase 4, Phase 5 film, I think a Young Avengers film is in the works. They're introducing Miss America in, and I believe Doctor Strange too, who for a time, you know, is the leader of the Young Avengers, America Chavez. And so that's already 4 characters that you have. You know,
Plus, we know that they recast Cassie Lang for the next Ant-Man movie, who I think they got someone who is a little bit more high profile of an actress. So you can see they're definitely investing in the younger characters and the seeds that they're planting, for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Are you putting money on this, or are you thinking Young Avengers is Phase 4? Maybe that's like the big Avengers movie of this phase, or
you know,
Phase 5? Welcome to the new segment of the show, everybody. This is Comic Bookies, where we place bets on what we think is going to happen.
Comic Bookies with a dollar sign at the end. Man, this just got bad. Here's what I think. And this is going to be a little controversial. I read one unsubstantiated article, just one, but it made perfect sense to me. They said that they are not doing an Avengers film in Phase 4.
Okay. Right.
And I sat back and thought about this, and I'm like, that's really interesting because they've just about announced everything that they're going to do for Phase 4 already.
Right.
Like, we don't have anything to look forward to in the next few years that we don't already know about. Right. So I'm thinking to myself, and especially with this mixture of like old characters getting their TV shows now because they're kind of grandfathered into the Avengers universe, and then new characters getting, films, or newer characters rather getting their films. Black Panther only has one film, so he's getting a sequel. We're going to wrap up the Spider-Man trilogy. Doctor Strange is somewhat new. He was introduced the same year that Civil War was, so he's getting a sequel. But then we're getting all these new characters. We're getting Shang-Chi. We're getting a new Black Widow, and we're going to be introduced the Eternals. Where
not to mention Captain Marvel too. Monica Rambeau. Right. She basically stole the show in WandaVision. WandaVision was great being about Wanda and Vision, but Monica had some moments, man.
Woo! Monica, first of all, marry me, Monica. Second of all, Monica Rambeau is one of the characters that I grew up with as a child. She was the first Captain Marvel that I was acquainted to personally. I still have those Secret Wars comics where she is not only a member of the Avengers at that time, but the leader of the Avengers. Right. In a time when Captain America was not, occupying that position. And, she was the field leader. She did her thing. And the Captain Marvel saga and its idea of legacy and the mantle, and even now that Carol Danvers is probably the most high-profile character in the Marvel comic universe, knowing how her discussion with Captain America led her from becoming Miss Marvel to Captain Marvel, and understanding that she is not the only person to have that handle. She's not even the first woman to have that mantle. She's just the most recent one, right? Right. I foresee big things for Monica Rambeau. I don't know if she's going to get her own film per se. I don't know if we're going to get a next wave film, or anything like that. But
a next wave film would be ridiculous.
Oh my God. Yeah, it would be like the perfect movie for Deadpool to just drop in for no reason. Yeah, I was going to say
it would be on par with Deadpool for sure.
It would be so great. But
also we're getting a Miss Marvel TV series as well, and she will be popping up in the second Captain Marvel film as well. So it's gonna be a Marvel family affair.
It absolutely will be. And I'm glad that you mentioned that because with WandaVision, I kind of feel like the primary theme of it was just grief and one hero's journey to getting through all the stages of grief. And that cycle was completely, and of course she walked out of that a brand new person. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what therapy is. That's exactly what counseling does. So I thought that was a beautiful thing. And because it was a very personal and relatable journey in the ways that it was. And so I feel like with Wanda, the overall theme being grief, how to manage it and how to overcome it, I feel like with, like we're talking about Captain Marvel, this idea of legacy and passing the mantle, that's kind of how I feel like Falcon and Winter Soldier is going. I feel like that the primary theme is legacy. Not only do we have Falcon, who we all know becomes Captain America or currently is Captain America in the comics, but he's fighting alongside Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, one of the other few characters in the Marvel universe to actually become Captain America and have the shield at some point. But not only that, but also we're getting U.S. Agent in the show, who is another variant of kind of the Captain America super soldier-y kind of line, and there's so many more. The other day we were talking about Isaiah Bradley. I mean, there are so many versions of this character, and we're getting so many of them in this show. right?
Yeah.
So you have a Captain America show that doesn't have Captain America, but at the same time, it has like 7 Captain Americas in it.
Exactly. And we, we were talking about that article. I believe it was Vanity Fair. If you guys have a chance to check it out, I highly suggest it. It's a great primer going into the first episode. One of the people working on the show specifically recommends that if you're going to do any reading before watching the show, to read the Marvel comic book Truth, Red, White, and Black, which is about Isaiah Bradley, the one of the people to carry that title of Captain America, a black man. And it kind of goes into the secrets of the development of the Super Soldier Project and how it has been used within the Marvel Universe. And again, going back to that idea that they are seeding the MCU with these younger characters, the grandson of Isaiah Bradley is Elijah Bradley, who becomes Patriot, a member of the Young Avengers.
Coincidence? I think not.
Yeah, it's really cool to kind of, at the same time, like, you can tell that Marvel is really thinking about how far they've come and taking the time to invest in some characters that have not necessarily gotten their own films so far. I mean, we just got 9 episodes of a show about the Scarlet Witch and Vision. That's hours worth. Like, I'm not going to do math right now. But like, that's like 3 movies. I don't know what math.
Yeah,
anyway,
that's
like
about
that's a good chunk of content, right? And then I think we got 6 episodes of Falcon and Winter Soldier. Bucky and Sam have been in the films, but they have not gotten their own films. So they're about to get, 3 movies worth of screen time. So they are really going back and making sure that as they are starting to look forward, those stories of those characters that might be the ones to carry it forward are well woven into the MCU that we know so far. And also that the characters who have not necessarily gotten that spotlight for a huge amount of time are getting that chance to shine before we really forge ahead into the future.
Yeah. And it's an interesting future to be had. I think I've talked to you about this before, bro. Like, dude, I didn't realize how much I needed 2020, where we got no Marvel movies, where we got no Marvel TV shows. We were supposed to get Black Widow, but that got delayed. And so DC kind of snuck in and had their fun. We got, Birds of Prey.
To clarify real quick, nobody needed 2020, but in the sense of being like needing to catch our breath post Endgame, for sure.
Grief. Yeah. I mean, it was hard for me to even process why we're even getting a Spider-Man, Homecoming 2, as much as I enjoyed it after Endgame, because it was like, we don't need anything else. Like, I'm completely satisfied. If we never even got, if they just decided to conclude the entire MCU after Endgame, I would honestly be like, you know what? I get it. I understand. And I spent a good decade of my life following these films, enjoying these films, and they did a good job, right? I'd be satisfied. I wouldn't need a Phase 4. I don't need Eternals. I don't need blah, 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 blah. But we're getting it anyway. And we just needed that nice little break to just kind of catch our breath as Marvel fans, get back into the saddle. I mean, and not even just like the Netflix the Defender shows on Marvel on Netflix, but bro, I mean, Cloak and Dagger on Hulu.
Yeah, The Runaways.
The Runaways on
Agents
Hulu,
of
which was
S.H.I.E.L.D.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Agent Carter, that Inhuman show that really bombed.
We don't talk about that.
we don't talk, which pisses me off because I was not a lot of people know about the royal Inhuman family, right?
Yeah.
So I was so excited that we were finally going to get like a real live action MCU version of these characters, and man, they just pooped the bed, bro. They just pooped right on my pancakes, and I couldn't believe that they would do Black Bolt so dirty. What I originally thought was that, especially with the inclusion of, Black Panther and eventually the X-Men and Fantastic Four, which is inevitable, that they were going to do that one of the Avengers films in the future would have to do with the Illuminati.
Sure. Yeah.
Which now we don't have Professor X, we don't have Reed Richards yet, but Iron Man's dead, and now we don't have T'Challa. So now I'm thinking,
and I have a good feeling we probably won't see Black Bolt again.
Exactly, they pretty much retconned him out of existence, unless they somehow show up in the Eternals film, which would make a lot of sense because the Inhumans and Thanos kind of pop out of that conflict between the Eternals and the Deviants and the Celestials and all those cosmic entities.
It's really interesting to know that they've attempted the Inhumans, but that in and of itself, like that standalone project, didn't do great. But Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. really dove in on Inhumans and had a lot of stuff going on there. Obviously you had Daisy Johnson, Quake. She was in that and as one of the main characters. And then obviously coming up, Miss Marvel, she's an Inhuman. And so it'll be interesting to see if they continue to use that mythology of everything that goes on in that world to fuel those stories, or if they find some new way to do it and just be like, we don't really need to talk about the Inhumans anymore. Does she need to get her powers from Terrigen Mist, or can we do some other way? I'm intrigued to see how they handle that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. I've kind of thought about that. I love how Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. introduced this concept of like Inhumans and dormant Inhumans and stuff like that. Before the Royal Family Inhuman show, which again they're probably not going to go back to unless they recast the characters or something. But we can finally move on. We don't have to necessarily worry about the Netflix shows. We don't have to worry about the ABC, Freeform, Hulu shows. We're kind of done with all that. And I highly doubt they're going to go back to it. Now, we're kind of moving forward with Disney Plus shows. We're moving forward with WandaVision, with Falcon Winter Soldier, with Loki, Miss Marvel, Moon Knight, all Armor Wars, Secret Invasion, all this stuff that we have to look forward to, that is going to be explicitly tied to the films instead of being adjacent to them like the Netflix shows turned out to be. When I realized the Thanos snap had no effect on the characters on Netflix, I was like, shouldn't people be disappearing right now? And it was just like, oh, okay, so I guess not. But I'm still super excited to see where these characters go, and I'm excited for the future of Phase 4. Essentially, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it took a while for me to get there, but now I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I'm kind of ready to do this again, and I have no idea where it's going to lead, and that's okay. We have, this idea that, the Netflix Marvel shows are more adjacent to the films than actually being a part of them, especially because the Thanos snap had no effect on any of the characters in those shows. So now we're going to get, these Disney Plus shows that are basically just going to be spin-offs of the films. Mm-hmm. And directly not only be influenced by the films, but to influence future films, which is something that the Defender shows weren't ever able to do. Yeah. So that's really exciting for Marvel, and I'm very, very excited to see the future of the legacy of Captain America because of the Falcon and Winter Soldier show, especially considering there are currently no plans to revive the character or anything like that. So it's like, okay, what's going to happen with the mantle of Captain America? What's going to happen with the shield?
Yeah, no, I'm super pumped for that. When we got to that moment at the end of Endgame, and Steve gave Sam the shield, I was so emotionally drained already. I was not like, you get to the end of that, you get to Tony's funeral, you got no more tears left to cry, and then Cap doesn't come back from taking the Infinity Stones back, and you're just like, I got nothing left, Marvel, come on. Yeah. And but then when you see the payoff, you're just like, all right, I got a few more tears, you can have these. Right. And Not like, hey, you know it's going to be fun because every interaction that Sam and Bucky have had in the MCU since Civil War has just been it's going to be a true buddy cop film between these two where you know, it's Riggs and Murtaugh. It's two guys who, you know, only they can do what they do, but also they don't always get along, and it's going to be a lot of fun in that aspect. I'm sure like there's going to be so much like witty banter and just plenty of moments to laugh, but it's also, I'm excited for them to really delve into some true to life topics because, you know, from all the interviews and stuff and even the trailers, you can tell like this show is not going to be afraid to address things like nationalism and terrorism. And I think they fully revealed that the villains, the lead villain and like the people they work with are going to be Flag Smasher or the Flag Smashers, which have a lot of like, they deal with a lot of like anarchy and nationalism and that kind of stuff in the comic books. They're definitely, I'm really excited to see them tackle the idea of what it means for a black man to take the mantle of Captain America, to have the original Captain America hand him the shield. And then obviously from the trailers, somebody steps in and is like, we don't want you to have it, at least right now. You know, how does that play out? What does that mean for the country? What does that mean for Sam, who is U.S. agent John Walker? Like, why is it him that they pick? Is he on the up and up? Like, I love the fact that this is going to not shy away from some heavier things. And I'm excited to watch that play out and to talk about it for sure.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot of implications. I mean, even thinking about like Civil War and how the Russo brothers and the director's seat brought back Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross from the 2008 film, you know, The Incredible Hulk. Yeah. Just to include this idea that the government really has their own idea of national security, not only what it should be, but what it should appear as. Right. You know, the Sokovia Accords made sense, just like the Superhero Registration Act made sense in the Civil War comic books and all this stuff. But holy cow, you don't realize until after you know how much they still really want a handle on these sorts of things. I mean, Captain America was completely, you know, jaded out of this idea of American solidarity after, you know, all these conspiracy theories kind of came true in Captain America, the Winter Soldier, which is my favorite MCU film out of all 23. Like, they really went into this really sweet political thriller mode. Yeah. Captain America finally stopped being the, you know, good old, soldier Boy Scout. You know what I'm saying? And started thinking independently and for himself, and you know, with the assistance of Black Widow, who does nothing but think for herself. You know, she's like the most independent-minded person ever. For sure, you know? For sure. And then Sam Wilson, who's kind of on the fence. You know, he's served. He wants to get out. He's experienced tragedy. He's out now. He appreciates the fact that he doesn't have to go back in. And Captain America is the only reason why he would ever even volunteer. And eventually it pays off. Not only does he become an Avenger, he becomes the next Captain America. I mean, what higher honor is that? I think there's a beautiful story about
the kind of person not just Steve is or Sam is, but the kind of person Captain America is, like as a symbol and as an icon, because Steve very much, like, his core belief, his core like personality, he says it. He straight up says, like, you know, was it Red Skull who asks him, like, you know, what's so special about you? And he's like, nothing. I'm just a kid from Brooklyn and I don't like bullies. And like, that is like boiled down everything about Steve Rogers and about the idea of Captain America. And you can pinpoint in all of the movies he's been in the few things that are just almost like the requirements for someone to be Captain America. And it's very cool to see how, you know, a lot of people talk about how World War II was the last like war where there were almost like clear-cut good guys and bad guys. It was like Allies versus Nazis. Boom, done. Right. And it was, in some ways it was easier to identify like who the good guys and bad guys were. And Captain America was obviously a good guy. And to him, like the Nazis were the ultimate bullies. And coming into modern times, like he woke up and kind of immediately got sucked into the situation that we saw play out in the first Avengers film, which again was like, okay, these aliens are here to kill us. Maybe let's stop them. And, but then once he got back into, after the Avengers movie, he was in Winter Soldier, and he had to deal with how much had changed on a small scale level, because we hear him talking about finding a place to live. You see his little notebook where he's trying to catch up on all the different like movies and music and pop culture and everything that he has missed out on. And then on top of that, he's dealing with the fact that like conflict doesn't necessarily have that same level of clear-cut black and white good guy and bad guy anymore, because S.H.I.E.L.D. is kind of shady, and maybe he's running into some bad guys who make some good points, and just all this kind of stuff where it's like, he's in this conflict of ultimately, even by the end of the film, I think he knows that his heart wants to do one thing, but he isn't necessarily sure that it's the right thing to do for anyone other than him, except for the fact that he knows these ships are bad, especially once he realizes it's been Hydra all along. And I think there is this really beautiful moment of clarity from in Civil War, because Civil War starts out and he's, running missions, doing the Captain America thing with the Avengers. The issue happens in Lagos with Wanda. And you can see he's like, Cap is super conflicted about the Sokovia Accords, what they mean, what they don't mean. Should he sign them? Shouldn't he sign them? He gets really close at one point. And then Tony says something about how they are keeping Wanda at the Avengers compound. And that turns him off from the whole thing all over again. And I think there's a beautiful moment in during Peggy's funeral when Sharon reveals that she's Peggy's niece. Yeah. And she delivers this quote from that's an iconic quote from the Captain America comics, where she says, when the whole world is looking at you and trying to tell you what you should and shouldn't do, you have to, when you know that you are, I'm butchering it, I'm terrible at this game.
No, I know what you're saying.
Basically, she says, when everyone else is telling you to move, you have to plant yourself like a tree next to the river of truth and say, no, you move. And I believe that was the thing that told Steve, like, hey, whatever else happens, you have to do what is right for you. There is a reason you are Captain America. And it's the same reason that Dr. Erskine in First Avenger looked at him and said, beyond anything else, you have to be a good man. Like, that is your superpower. That is the most important thing. And I think that quote from Sharon was a reminder of, like, you have to do right by you. You have to do what's right for you. You have to be a good man. And I think that is ultimately what galvanized him to be like, cool, okay, we're going to help Bucky. We're going to do this. We're going to stand our ground. We got to go get this Quinjet. Oh no, we're fighting our friends, but we got to do what we got to do. All that kind of stuff. And I think that re-energized him and reaffirmed, like, there is a reason that he is Captain America, and it's not just because he was a good guinea pig for the experiment and, he desperately wanted to be in the army. And I think he saw those same things in Sam. I think that he saw someone who, above all else, always did his best to be a good man while he was in, afterward, and his working with veterans and with those who are dealing with PTSD and that kind of stuff.
Right.
And the fact that he didn't flinch at any point in his efforts to help Steve and Natasha and Fury and any of that stuff. Steve gave him every out and said, you don't have to do this. You got out for a good reason. I respect that. Thank you for letting us hide here. And he was like, yeah, it's cool. So when do we need to go and where are we going? I'm ready.
Right.
Like, he was all in. And that spoke to Sam's character. And Sam is absolutely the kind of guy you would want to hand the shield over to. I can understand why more so than Bucky, who became Cap before Sam did in the comics. I can understand why they would pass over him within the context of the MCU, because Bucky's been through a lot. It still hasn't been that long since he got his life back. I think Steve knows that, sure, maybe he could have given the shield to Bucky and he would have known that Sam would have been there to support him, but he knows that Bucky still he's on the road to recovery. Like, he's got to figure out what this life is for him. And Bucky can give context and help to Sam better than he can handle the full title of Captain America, especially because, as far as we know, the world still, a lot of the world might still see him as a terrorist. Like, that is still murky territory. He might have been cleared, but it's one thing to tell people like, oh yeah, James Buchanan Barnes is actually, he's fine, don't worry about it. But then for the world to go like, oh yeah, he's fine. Also, he's Captain America, which I'm totally on board with. Like, there's still murky water there. And I think pairing him with Sam, who is a little more in line to fit that role of what Cap can be, but also do it in his own way. Yeah. Pairing Bucky with him is going to allow Bucky to heal fully and also re-embrace himself as one of the good guys.
Right. And, I'm also very excited to see where this series is going to lead. Because after these, 6 1-hour-long episodes, what's going to happen to these characters? Are we going to see them again in future Avengers films? Are they going to pop up as cameos the same way Falcon did in Ant-Man? What is the mantle of Captain America even going to mean to an Avengerless world? Yeah. There are just so many questions that I have. Without Captain and without Iron Man, who effectively co-facilitated the Avengers together as benefactor and field leader, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do with the name, with the brand? Yeah. There's just so many things that could go south. Thor's gonna be Lord knows where. And everyone that's left on, and there's no T'Challa, so that Black Panther role is going to need to be fulfilled as well. Right. Not to mention all the new characters coming in. We don't know if Monica is going to be a member of the new Avengers. We don't know if Shang-Chi or Doctor Strange are going to join the Avengers.
How do the Fantastic Four fit? And they have announced that movie. They deal obviously with a lot of cosmic stuff. They are often associated with Galactus, who I could easily see being another several phases long built up massive end game type of enemy for the Marvel universe. I think it's really interesting. And I think the fact that there has been no big Avengers project, film, whatever, announced for this phase, I wonder if maybe that means that it's building towards something else. Because even though there was no clear big reveal of Wanda, your father is Eric Lyncher and you're a mutant or anything in WandaVision, they obviously left us with that hint of, they had powers before they interacted with the Mind Stone. Right. And that is why they were able to survive interacting with the Mind Stone. So where those powers come from could still be revealed down the road. Yeah. Also, this is maybe a little bit of a spoiler, but I think most people who have paid attention to the MCU and what's going on with it, and maybe paying attention to the production of these projects, might already know this. There is a very specific location that I think at this point has even popped up in the trailers, even if it hasn't been named, that Sam and Bucky go to during one of their missions or whatever they're doing, that is from the X-Men comics. It is a location that is very regularly visited by the mutant population. And so I'm wondering if maybe these little hints that aren't necessarily built upon, or it's like I wonder if ultimately, even though fans are going to jump on it and be like, no, look at that. I wonder if ultimately the vibe is something like you can go back in WandaVision and see a little bit of a hint here that maybe you weren't paying attention to. You can go back in Falcon and Winter Soldier, see a little bit more of a hint there. Like these things from the mutant X-Men side of the Marvel universe are just being planted and everything. And then maybe toward the end, that kind of stuff starts to ramp up. And as opposed to ending in some big Avengers versus a new enemy fight, it ends with this expansion of the Marvel universe that introduces mutants and possibly the X-Men, setting up for Phase 5 to be an X-Men heavy phase. So instead of it being like, because the thing that worked about the first 3 phases being very Avengers heavy is that you had that first Avengers film at the end of the first phase that still hinted like, oh, but there is a bigger thing at play here with Thanos. And then that continued to build. So even though you're watching Age of Ultron and Ultron is the bad guy, you know that this is just part of a bigger story, that this is playing into bigger things. And maybe you'll never see Ultron again, but you know you're going to see the Avengers again because their story isn't over. And I think the reason we're not seeing an Avengers film at the end of Phase 4 is because these phases are not about the Avengers. These phases are not about, oh, and then at the end we're going to get the team back together and fight, I don't know, whoever, you know. It's not like Phase 4 is going to be Galactus, and then Phase 5 is, you know, I know they're introducing Kang in the third Ant-Man movie. What is it? Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumania.
Right.
Very excited for that, by the way. Jonathan Majors was astounding in Lovecraft Country. Another fantastic show. If you guys haven't watched it, go check that out on HBO Max. Actually, I don't know. We'll add that to the list of things maybe to cover in the future.
Heck yeah, I'm for it.
But, you know, we're definitely, I think so far at the very least, there is a theme of just expanding the locales of the Marvel universe for sure. Not everything is a big showdown in New York. You know, where we were in Westview, New Jersey. It seems like there's going to be a lot of globe trotting in Falcon and Winter Soldier. I would not be surprised if expansion overall in concepts and locations is a big theme of everything happening. And it would be, depending on what they have in mind. I mean, also we're getting the Eternals, so we're expanding the scope of the MCU time-wise, because obviously they're eternal. So yeah, there's just a lot at play, and I am very interested in this really amazing balance that they've struck so far between that expansion and those ideas of expansion and planting these seeds of growth, but also still managing to tell these incredibly intimate stories with Wanda and Vision. And, you know, like we were just talking about, they're definitely going to deal with some intimate stuff with Sam and Bucky and them personally and what they're going through, as well as how that plays into these roles they're stepping into as potentially the new Captain America, and Bucky dealing with, you know, owning who he is now as a man in the modern world. He's kind of going through what Steve went through in Captain America 2, where he has been through so much. He's been a bad guy. He's just now like when they finally flushed all the brainwashing out of him, he woke up immediately into Infinity War pretty much. And that was chaos all the way through because he got snapped away. He woke back up, jumped right into the final battle. And now it's like, okay, so what do I do now? And this is the story of what him and Sam do now. So there's so much at play. I'm really excited. Like, just talking about it has me like, I'm sitting down, but I'm on the edge of my seat, literally just talking about it.
Yeah, dude, we have so much to look forward to, and we have absolutely so much to anticipate and speculate on. And man, I'm still shocked that Marvel Studios even had it in them to go this deep and take it this far. I tell you what, dude. Like I said before, I wasn't on board. I mean, but I am now. I'm committed and I'm dedicated, and Falcon and Winter Soldier is coming in just a day or two.
Yeah.
And then in a few months from now, we're gonna get Loki, right?
Yeah.
That's a brand new effing thing. Oh my gosh, I'm just like, there's just so my mind can't even wrap my brain around it. Like, I never thought I'd be this satisfied without any Marvel films, but these TV shows are kicking so much butt right now. And I want more, dude. I want more. So, Falcon Winter Soldier's coming in 2 days.
I think
tomorrow?
It comes out tonight at
Oh
midnight, Friday morning.
My gosh, I'm not going to sleep.
We are recording this today on Thursday, March 18th. It comes out tonight, technically.
Yeah, I'm not going to bed, bro.
Yeah, I'm staying up for sure.
I'm staying up.
And we're also excited to tell you that not only do you get this sweet little MCU discussion leading up to Falcon and Winter Soldier, but we will be live on YouTube every Friday evening to talk with you about each new episode. And we hope you will join us for that. We will be live on YouTube 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific time, breaking down the new episodes of Falcon and Winter Soldier. We hope you'll join us. We're going to have a lot of fun. We got some sweet things we're going to try to integrate, make it a good time for everybody. A couple neat surprises. It'll be a good time all around. And we would love to see you there.
Absolutely.
So, I don't know, any final thoughts? Any last parting words to leave everybody with before we get into the new show?
Absolutely. I just wanted to say, I think that I spent the majority of 2020 feeling excruciatingly sad and depressed and divided because of everything that was going on all year. And we may or may not be at a point where we are getting out of that funk, or rather, I feel like we are getting out of that funk, and now, the world, I feel like, is trying to bring us back down into that funk. These shows are a beautiful form of escapism. They are poetic and they're fun, and they're one of the things that kind of bring us together to the same table, regardless of our differences. I don't mean to sound cheesy or anything like that, but it really does. Like you and me, John, our common denominator ended up being, Ghostbusters and Gundam, a mutual love for those two franchises. And, and now you're like, a brother from a different mother, essentially. And here we are, and that's the beauty of these kinds of shows. And so for my audience members, if you've ever been worried or scared that it's going to get too exhausting, or you need to watch 11 years worth of films to get into it, to understand the context and stuff like that, why don't you just take the bold step, just hop in and see if you like it or not. If you don't, then cool. If you like it, then fantastic. Welcome to the family. But for me, these comic book adaptations, I just started, the Snyder Cut of Justice League, and tomorrow we're going to get, Falcon Winter Soldier. We just got done with WandaVision. In June or July, we'll get Loki. So these shows bring the world together in a time when everything from the virus to politics to, race-based murders, everything is trying to divide us. These shows have a beautiful ability to keep us together. And I want to honor that, and I want to support that. And that's where I'm going to be if you want to find me. So I would recommend join us. There's no shame in being a geek, a nerd, or neither of those things, and still enjoying these shows. So I really hope you will enjoy this show with us, that you'll give it a shot, and that you'll join us on Friday to talk about it.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that any better. By all means, regardless of who you are, join us. This is a place for everybody. It's all inclusive. These characters and these stories are all inclusive. There is no right or wrong way to enjoy them, and we welcome you here. And we look forward to seeing what the next phase of Marvel has to offer us, but also just, I mean, even beyond that, you know, we're looking forward to covering Black Widow, Spider-Man No Way Home. We're going to get into some DC stuff. We're going to get into some animated stuff. I mean, we're going to get weird. We're going to get wild. We'll probably dig into some anime. We'll cover some comic books. This is all about celebrating just heroes and superheroes and animated heroes and comic book heroes and film heroes in all their shapes and forms. And it's going to be a good time. So thank you so much for joining us for this little pilot episode / MCU recap, getting hyped for Falcon and Winter Soldier. And we'll see you on Friday. We're with you till the end of the line, everybody. Take it easy. 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 Line, everybody.